get started. All right. Okay, so I am going to give it just a minute and we're going to do a sound check. And I see people popping on. Thank you for your patience, guys. Hi, you guys. Hey, Joan and Trisha, can you guys hear us okay? If I get the thumbs up, we're going to go ahead and get started with a proper introduction. Just want to make sure that all systems are go and everybody can hear us. Can you hear me? Thanks, Trisha. Appreciate it. All right, so today, we are talking about a hot topic. It's been around for, it is making its way even bigger in the wellness space. I can promise you that I know way too much about this topic. But we're speaking with Dr. Todd Watts today, and he's a national board certified chiropractic physician in Idaho, a functional wellness practitioner, and is licensed with the Pastoral Medical Association. Many know him as the Parasite Guy, but he also has extensive knowledge in functional blood chemistry, biochemistry, and in helping those with chronic illness overcome their struggles to restore their health. He is also the co-founder of Microbe Formulas and Cellcore Biosciences and loves to research to formulate products which will change the world. Dr. Watts was the first to bring Mimosa pudica, is that how you say that? Pudica seed to the general health market in the US. He has an amazing health journey, which has led him to be able to help others. And as I just told my students less than an hour ago, I met you at Mindshare. Do you remember this? I had laryngitis. I couldn't speak from day one. And within literally a few minutes of you working on my neck and my head and adjusting me, I had almost 70% of my voice back. So I thanked you before, but I thank you again for that. And I'm so happy to have you with us today. Thank you so much. So let's just dive in. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about parasites. And I know you're going to dispel some myths for us today. So let's begin with why is this one of those things that we just can't seem to nail down that is the problem? It's like thyroid, adrenal infections, pathogens. What's the mystery with these little guys?
Well, they're hard to really diagnose that they're there. So in my journey of getting over Epstein-Barr and Lyme disease and babesia, I went to the next step of realizing I had a doctor tell me, hey, Dr. Watts, you have parasites. That's your problem, that you've overcome these other things, but you keep cycling and not seeming to overcome your health problems. So when he let me know that, then I dove full in, and I've been studying this stuff like crazy. And his name's Dr. Matt Buckley. He was out of Austin, Texas. We become good friends. And so that became my journey in the whole parasite thing. And so with that, it's dramatically changed my life: headaches, migraines, food allergies, sensitivities, energy levels, and then led me forward to then, clearing out metals and toxins and other things too. But that was the key part in my shift in understanding why I was having problems overcoming the other infections. And I recently gave a presentation at the Forum for Integrative Medicine correlating the chemistry and tie-in with why that happens, how parasites do this cycle. And I can pop it up on our screen too and show the pathways there, what it does to our immunity system and what happens with chronic viral infections or what happens with Lyme infections. And so, it's just, they're hard to say. There's no good testing out there that says you have it. So then you have to look at, okay, what are the symptoms? What are the signs? What is your case history? I have a questionnaire assessment form that I have people go through to see if it could be. But ultimately, what we see is so many doctors like test for Lyme and Epstein-Barr and mold and all these other infections. But since we can't test well, they just ignore the elephant in the closet, which is parasites.
Okay. So how did you... let's back up just a little bit. And can you give us a little bit of background? Because I know everything you just ran through, Lyme, Epstein-Barr, I'm sure the thyroid and adrenals were probably involved in there because those are our messengers telling us that something's going on. How did you, besides someone saying to you, I think you have parasites, like, how did your journey start? Like, where was the first symptom for you? Even with like the EBV, because, beyond parasites, these are hot topics too with health coaches where we're trying to help people understand what's happening. And viruses and pathogens, it's like a mystery. It's really hard to unravel.
It really is. So EBV is what I noticed first.
Okay.
Now, I was dating a gal for a while, and she had been on a service mission and came back because she couldn't get over these sore throats. They thought she had strep constantly over and over. They couldn't figure it out. She did not have mono because it came back negative. For some reason, they never tested for Epstein-Barr. Mm-hmm. And she came back, she was doing pretty good. And when we were dating, all of a sudden I got this really horrible sore throat, super sick. My spleen was hurting. My throat was so swollen. And so when they got tested, I was negative for mono. And my dad said, look, you got to go get that tested because it's got to be Epstein-Barr. And sure enough, I was positive for Epstein-Barr. And it took her 18 months for me being sick and figuring it out to let her know what was wrong with her problem, what was wrong with her.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So within about 2 years, I was 28 at the time. Within about 2 years after that, all of a sudden I had seasonal allergies that I'd never had my whole life. I was insensitive to foods. And through my 30s, I started getting chronic inflammation and injuries. I was really into sports back at the time. And then by the end of my 30s, working hard, I got married right before I turned 37, had kids 38, until I was 46 with my last child. And what happened at the end of my 30s, 40 years old, the market crashed in 2008. Mm-hmm. And so I was under a tremendous amount of stress. I lost my businesses, houses, cars, and I had to figure out what I was going to do the rest of my life at 40, having two little kids that were 1 and 2. And I was in the real estate and mortgage industry at the time. I had my pre-med degree earlier when I was in my undergrad, years and years before. So this gave me the time to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up at 40. Mm-hmm. And I decided to go back to chiropractic school so I could go into this internal medicine type of information of functional medicine. And the reason why I went that way instead of naturopathic school was because there's no licensing for naturopaths in Idaho.
Yep.
And so during that time period, I got way worse, probably because of the stress, because I was on well water that I didn't realize in that area had high arsenic, which is common. And after 18 months of being in that, my body just crashed. So I just had severe fatigue, joint pain, the Lyme stuff, the arthritis, the brain fog, you can't even think, chronic back pain, injured my shoulder, injured my back. I was 3 years in back pain. Being in chiropractic school, getting adjusted, doing physical therapy stuff, none of that helped. And so what you come down to is you realize those inflammatory areas where these bugs get into and just create inflammation and pain. And I was having headaches constantly until I figured out dairy. I had to get off dairy and gluten. And then my headaches went away. And then I was at a conference there in school. And at the conference, the guy was presenting on Lyme disease and co-infections. And I identified with so many of the Babesia symptoms and some of the Lyme infections. And he tested me energetically, muscle tested me. And then later I did an eye-spot Lyme test and came back positive with chronic Lyme disease. And so I took tons of products, did a lot of protocols for Lyme and Babesia, and I do well for a while, but then I would cycle down and crash. And so I was talking to one of my colleagues, Dr. Matt Buckley, and he said, look, he tested me, he's like, you have parasites, you got to clear parasites. And he said, you got small gluten and full tapeworm, you got strongyloides, and listed off a few of them. And you need to get these products. Well, one of the products is to treat larvae is Mimosa pudica. It was sold by BioPure, but it's different than what we currently sell. And I went to buy it, and it was out of stock for months. So he bought some from China off Alibaba. I wasn't brave enough to do that. and so one of my patients I had that had Lyme disease was traveling through Nevada, stopped in an Ayurvedic store, and they had some Mimosa pudica there. So I bought up the stock, and then I got to know the guy, and he was going over to India. He bought more of the Mimosa pudica for me and for my patients, and came back, and it was different than the first batch. It was more soluble. It was less soluble. It was gunky, sticky. We put it in oil. It sticks to your throat, sticks to your mouth, and then we finally figured out we needed to encapsulate it instead of having people take it like powder. Yeah. And we just through experience for 4.5 years now, learning how the Mimosa pudica seed works, it just has been phenomenal to really grab the stuff in your gut and just clean the GI system out and to help clear out parasites along with other formulations that we have. But wow, when I cleared the parasites out and cleared strongyloides, all of a sudden my headaches, I could eat ice cream again. Not that I go and do that, but every once in a while I have a good milkshake or yogurt and I don't react to it anymore. Right. And I can eat cheese without having severe headaches. all the reactions, so many of my food allergies went away. The energy started coming back. I got about 85-90% of my energy back. And I was just stuck at the end with just muscle fatigue. And that's where then getting into clearing mercury and arsenic out of my system, all of a sudden, my whole energy just came back and I felt so good. So that's been a huge thing in my practice was instead of going after Lyme for all these people, we have to clear out the parasites that host the Lyme that Dr. Alan McDonald, who's a medical pathologist, talked about in patients that had MS, in every one of their systems, they had Borrelia site parasites, hematins.
Okay.
So there's a big correlation that they've known for a long time with infections inside of other bigger, microorganisms and then also how it affects the immune system. And I can pull some stuff up and show, but that's essentially my story of overcoming chronic fatigue. Severe fatigue was probably the most debilitating part of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I mean, and obviously fatigue is a symptom that could be from a million different things. And it does seem to be that one thing that we all like to, I think we all have a tendency to say, well, yes, I'm fatigued, but I can move through that. I can get through, I can continue with my day, when really that's our last, it's almost like our last sign. Like, listen, if you weren't going to slow down and figure out what's happening, I'm going to make you so tired, you don't have a choice but to do it. Right.
And that's the innate immune system that we have, right? I mean, our immune system is phenomenal that way. It's to say, look, we're going to raise your reverse T3 so that your body will be tired and you can take a nap and try and heal instead of
That's exactly what I did. Yes, I remember getting a high reverse T3 number back, and I was like, that's it. I started laying on the floor in the middle of the day and setting my alarm for 30 minutes just to, take down that energy in the middle of a busy day. I mean, it was a game changer for me, just the rest alone. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback on your end. I'm not sure if anyone else is either. It's kind of got a little bit of a delay. Do you have anything else open maybe that might be affecting audio?
Let me check that, and I can also grab my other microphone that helps. Let me grab that microphone really quick for you.
Okay, sure, go ahead. Yeah, It was fine when we started, but something's just shifted. I don't know. And as a reminder, you guys, if you have questions, remember this isn't, we got an hour-long webinar here, and there's a million different things we can talk about when it comes to parasites. But if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer all of them. Please don't put them in the chat. I have a very hard time tracking chat and Q&A because sometimes once things start coming through, they go really fast. So, let us know your experience with parasites in the chat if you're working with clients that have them. But put all questions in the Q&A. I do use the chat. When I download it to my computer, I do like to go back to the chat and see what kind of things health coaches are dealing with. It helps me to continue to bring you guys the education that you need. But again, any questions, put them in the Q&A for me. It'd be really, really helpful. So, okay.
So that should be better.
Yep, that's better. Good. And you know how to share your screen, right? You've got your screen.
I do.
Ready?
So yeah, I'd love to show that correlation with parasites and chronic infections, and let me know when you want me to share my screen. I can do that.
Yeah, let's do that now. I think now's a great time.
Okay.
And I'm fielding some comments and stuff. I'm going to be looking around here. If you see me poking around, I'm just going to watch questions, and we'll address those as we go at the very end.
So here it shows the correlation, and they show that the helminths, which is the worm infections in the gut, but they can also, as we know, get other organs. And it upregulates the T helper 2 cells. And when that happens, interleukin-4 and interleukin-13 are released. So interleukin-4 will go and bind to the receptor on the macrophages that are keeping these viruses latent or inactive. And when that happens, the interleukin-4 then will reactivate replication of the viruses. And not only will that happen there, but it also then they block the immunity from going after the virus. So there's 2 parts to it. Now we got, in this case, it shows the herpes virus becomes activated because of the parasite infection. And so an example of this is I had a patient that struggled for at least 10 years with the herpes viruses that he would get. And he would not only have them on his lip, but all through his nose. And it would get to the point where he would take days off of work because it was so bad he could barely function. And I didn't address the viruses with him. It's because he did all kinds of stuff and meds for it and everything. We cleared parasites, and within 3 months, cleared it completely up. And now it's been almost a year now, and he hasn't had any flare-ups of the viruses. So I've seen it over and over with other types of examples as well, that the the stress and the parasites can reactivate these organisms, and these viruses can replicate. And I would assume that there's something probably similar with Lyme, and or the fact that they just host the Lyme inside them that makes it harder to kill them. So there is actually an immunological reaction that occurs within this process here that we can see that affects our immune system and our T helper 2 cells.
Yeah, and when this reminds me, I mean, of course, I always think of my own past experience because I have a journey as well with my health. But what you were saying earlier about constant sore throats and strep and all of that, I mean, at one of the most stressful times of my life in my early 20s, I could not get rid of strep throat. I had swollen lymph nodes. I had the fever blisters breaking out all over my mouth. I mean, that was very much around the time where, I don't know how I survived that, but this is very good to explain what was happening with me. I haven't seen anything else clear. Very interesting.
It's a very good article, and it goes into more of the science. And for me, I used to get canker sores, and those things, I could barely talk when I get them on my tongue, and I've had a mouth full of them. And when I treated parasites, I haven't had a one since. Wow. And it was so wonderful because I used this stuff called Debacterol, which would just burn and singe the skin so that you could actually function, because they would take forever to go away, and it's so painful.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I used to pour straight salt on them.
Yeah, I've done cayenne straight too, but the Debacterol is what the dentists use, and it is phenomenal. It works really good. It just hurts like a son of a gun.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So I want to talk about biofilm before we go any further, because one of the things that we hear a lot about is that if you don't kill the biofilm, if you don't break the biofilm of parasites and pathogens and all of these things, you're not going to kill, whatever's causing the problem. Can you talk a little bit about biofilm and kind of give us some clarity on if that plays a role in this or what it is exactly?
It's a great question. It's definitely something that has to be addressed, right? But you have to be cautious on doing it. You can't just go right after biofilm and then release all these things into your system.
Yes.
That would be not a fun experience. Mm-mm. So the best thing I found for the GI system is the Para-1 product. Okay. And that is the Mimosa pudica seed. It just binds and pulls all that stuff out. And I've had people take 2 capsules, and the next thing they know, they have something 2 feet long coming out of them.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Really? So I believe in the GI system, parasites, other microbials can, get underneath that biofilm buildup, and then you can't get rid of it. So you have chronic yeast, you have chronic SIBO, you have chronic conditions that need to be cleared out. The first and foremost important part of the whole body is going to be the GI system. Mm-hmm. Then you can use other types of enzymes that you can use to break up other biofilms that can be beneficial, that they can cross into the bloodstream and then help take them out. There's also some essential oils that work well that I've used to help break the biofilms up. But when you are treating biofilms, you have to be sure you have binders that will take care of that. Both binders in the GI system, but also ones that go systemic, which is what we formulated that will go everywhere in the body.
Okay.
And then the other thing is you got to be sure you're taking antimicrobials as well.
Right.
So the antimicrobials will help deal with things that are being released. And that's where I've used a product called, and I don't know if you care if I name products, but
go for it.
Okay. So there's a company called Barlow Herbals. Jane Christensen, she's part of the Mindshare Summit, or the group there. And I use a lot of her products. And one of the main products I use is one called Vermicide GRD.
Okay.
It's really great for strongyloides, threadworm, intestinal worms, and also it's great for viruses. And in strongyloides, this is the one that I would say I know more about than almost any practitioner on the market, because I found this to be a pattern of so many of my patients, and I went through it myself. It's a small intestine stomach parasite, and the larvae get in the lungs, they get in the biliary ducts, they can plug things up in that way. They can get throughout the body and create lots of ammonia and byproduct. And once I cleared that out, that's when all my headaches went away. Dr. Hulda Clark speaks about it in her book, Cure for All Diseases, as that's the main causes of migraines and headaches and food allergies.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot about it. I track a number of different things to see progress in people. One of them, which is using a pulse oximeter and looking at not just the saturation and pulse, but I look at the Pulse Perfusion Index. So it's just a $26 piece of machinery that you put on the finger, and the perfusion index, if they have low perfusion index, then I'm thinking chronic illness and infection, and or heavy metals. One of those, which is strongyloides, probably Epstein-Barr, can be another contributor, Lyme. And it's a really great way to see, are your patients getting oxygen into their tissues and brain? If you have a low perfusion index, probably not.
Okay, so that's something at the doctor, right? When we go to the doctor, they take your blood pressure, they do your temperature, they put that thing on your finger. That's what they're doing.
No, because the ones they carry don't have the perfusion index on it.
Oh, okay.
It has to have the 3 readings. It has to have the 3, not the 2 readings, the 3 readings. Most people have good saturation. Some don't, and you need to address the lung stuff.
Right.
But it's the perfusion index. Another marker is low blood pressure, 105 over 70, 99 over something else. You have low perfusion. Okay, you clear out these metals, you start clearing out these infections, and what's going to happen is it's going to come up. And I went from, the range is 0.2 to 20. When I started, I was at 0.25. So no wonder why I was exhausted and fatigued. I wasn't getting oxygen. No wonder I couldn't work out for 9 years.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I had no oxygen in my tissues and muscles and everything.
Right.
So it's the cheapest piece of machinery in my office that there is to check, and it gives me really good information.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I have patients that just buy them, and I have them check and give me readings every time I talk to them.
Yeah, that's cool. So you can buy these.
Amazon. Go to Amazon, and you get them. Innovo is a good brand, INOVO, but it has to be with perfusion index.
All right, I'm writing this down so I can send it out with the replay, everybody. So, yep, I know everybody's going to be like, Carmen, can you please? Okay. All right.
So Nicole throws there, I have low blood pressure. No one has ever said anything. So yes, get that. It's $26. There's a lot of them on there, but be sure it's the perfusion index one and check it. I went from 0.25, then up to 1, and then up to 5, and now I'm between 15 and 20. Guess what? I can work out again. I have energy. I feel great.
That's awesome.
If you have molds, that's another thing. It's going to be really low as well.
Okay, so it's good for more than just looking at viruses and all of that. You can look at it for other things too. So if you're someone who's exercise intolerant.
Yeah, oxidative stress. So if you have oxidative stress, what drives it? These infections, toxins, and part of toxins is heavy metals. Arsenic is a really good one to look at that can create mitochondrial dysfunction and lack of ATP.
Yeah, I actually had high arsenic on my one of my tests. It was probably about a year ago or something like that. And then high oxidative stress. I mean, it was like a shitstorm of a report when I got it back. I was like,
sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so let's talk it kind of in layman's terms about parasites for a minute.
Okay.
Because it seems like to me, in monitoring 5 or 6 groups and 5,000 coaches and working with hundreds of clients in almost 8 years, it seems like parasites get thrown in there with adrenal fatigue. So this is an example. Someone says, I'm working with a client who has constant headaches. They've given up all of the inflammatory foods. They're sleeping better, all of this, but they're still not feeling better or whatever. Everyone throws in parasites, but no one says, this is how you know, this is how you can tell. Everyone just likes to throw the word parasites at something and see if it sticks, right? So,
yes.
So can you give us a step-by-step, if someone has done everything else right and they think it might be parasites, what's the first thing? I know you said there's no really good test, but we can't just spend $5,000-$6,000 on modalities, treatments, and supplements.
I have a great test. I have a great test for you.
Okay.
You take your wrist, you get 2 fingers, and you put them right here on this thing, and you feel this thing if it's a pulse. It's called a pulse. If you have a pulse, you have a parasite.
I'm like, wait a minute. Is it supposed to be low, high? What is it?
No, you're breathing. You're a living organism. Okay. They love that. So if you're dead, you're no good for them.
Right. Well, except they're eating your skin, I guess, if you're in the ground. But
yeah.
Then what do we do about that? How do we know which ones we're going after? How do you figure out what, give us some real action steps on this thing.
All right. That's a really good thing. First thing I'm going to say is Dr. Hulda Clark with Cure for All Diseases gives us really great symptoms and correlates them with specific parasites.
Okay.
Another thing is there is on YouTube, there's a Dr. Pottinger from Robert Wood Foundation. He talks about helminths and strongyloides and goes through their life cycle. You can learn a lot about all the different parasites and when to look for them. It's fantastic. I can pull it up. I pull up YouTube videos. It's from the University of Washington. He's a medical doctor, goes through their life cycle, treatment phases. Now, obviously, they're not using herbs and what I would consider using a lot of times. He gives the medical, process of use this drug, use that drug. They may be important to use on certain people. Certain patients of mine will meet with the medical doctor in my clinic, and then we'll get a prescription to go along with herbal protocols that we do. But what I do is I muscle test is one way. Okay. Another way is a biofeedback machine that people use a Zytoscan to test these things. But for the most part, I will go through a protocol that will address most of them across the board. So the Para 2 product in the practitioner line. So we have two lines. We have a direct-to-consumer or affiliate, which people like the affiliate link, and we have a direct-to-practitioner line that you have to be approved practitioner, health coach to be able to get that, and then you get your wholesale wholesale stuff. People can drop ship; they don't even have to carry product. And the Para 2 product on that line is designed to address all 4 categories of parasites, now, which is protozoans, nematodes, cestodes, and trematodes.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Okay, and you're going to give me all this information. I'm going to get links to all this stuff, right? So I can share with everyone.
You bet. I can do that.
Excellent. Okay, so let me ask you this about Lyme disease. This is one of those one of the other evasive, problems people are dealing with. Everyone says, well, you can test it by blood, and you can test it. The only test is IGeneX and all of that. What do you use to test for Lyme?
So I use a few things. I do live cell microscopy. So I have a microscope in my clinic, right? You can see it.
Look at
right
me.
Here.
I'm leaning like I can look into your office.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I have a microscope right here, and I look in the blood, and I look at things there. Now, Lyme likes white tissue. It does not stay in the blood most of the time. So if it's chronic, after a few weeks, it goes into joints, and it goes into organ systems. So it can be very hard to test. I use DNA connections, but you can get a negative result.
Right.
If your immune system is fighting something else because it's more of a priority, it may not show enough antibodies towards Lyme. The other thing is Lyme can be overdiagnosed, in my opinion, as the main culprit. Mm-hmm. And so I see people that I treat typically, or that I help coach, is they come to see me and they've already seen tons of Lyme practitioners. Mm-hmm. They're missing the parasite part, or they're missing the mold issue, or the heavy metal issue, or it's a combination of all of the above. Right. So when we're looking at treating or coaching people, you have to be open to, it's not just candida or they have adrenal fatigue. That's to me drives me crazy. I have adrenal fatigue. Who told you that? Well, my functional med doctor. Like, that's such a crap.
Yes.
A load of crap. Why? Because it's just a byproduct of something else.
Yes.
It's like saying you have fibromyalgia. Well, yeah, but that's caused by something called trauma, toxins, and infection.
Oh my gosh.
And
you're preaching to the choir. I'm always like, a diagnosis is a symptom of something deeper. Find the problem.
Yes. I've seen adrenal fatigue. It could be emotional. It could be infections and oxidative stress. It could be toxins and metals. It's all these things that can happen. So I don't believe in just treating, here's adrenal support for the rest of your life. Yeah. Now, let's get to the root cause. And all these things that we mentioned are root causes. So coaching people need to be root cause coaching and treatment of these things. Now, in the order that I do them, parasites and mold are the top 2. Okay. Because you got to clear out the detox pathways. And part of clearing out the detox pathways is having those bile ducts open. If they're plugged up because of liver flukes or strongyloides or something else, then it's going to be really hard to detox. It's going to be really hard to get your liver function, which is vital for energy and health. And that's where I teach the doctors and coaches, and I also teach my patients here in the clinic that in your blood work, there's specific enzymes I look for. You don't have to look at the highs. It's important, just as important to look at ones that are low. Right. Like GGT, for example, or LDH, or alk-phos. So these are really important. Like LDH, if lactate dehydrogenase is low, that means they're going to have reactive hypoglycemia, which means they're not breaking down their sugars when they're fasting. These people need a snack to survive and have energy.
Yep.
So when you have low GGT, it could be indicative of low B6. Well, vitamin B6 is essential for fatty acid oxidation.
Right.
How are you going to burn fat? You're not going to burn your fat either. So now these people, a lot of the people that I coach, a lot of them can't make energy. Their mitochondria function is horrible.
Right.
Well, this is what we have to do is we have to start at some of those building blocks. Parasites play a major role in blood sugar dysfunction, a major role in liver function as well.
Okay. So this is kind of one of those things where I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, if somebody comes to us and they're like, well, I have this, a set amount of money that I can put towards treating, working on my health or whatever. And we say, you have a pulse, so you probably have a parasite, right? And they're like, all right,
Sure.
That's what I want to do. I want to go after that. How do I do that? Would it be fair to say that they could probably kind of forego all of the testing and finding a functional doctor and all that and order the products that you're going to tell us about and just treat it? Or do they need to know that they have it for sure before they go after it?
Well, the great thing about herbs, right? The great thing about them is they detox, they treat they're antimicrobials, not just anti-parasites. And they have a lot of nutrients and vitamins in them as well.
Right.
So it's not going to hurt somebody to take these products. And especially the Mimosa Pudica Para 1 product, that's going to cleanse out that system. Talk about getting your patient to believe in you. When they're passing something in 2 or 3 days out the back end that they've never seen before, that's, a foot long, 2 feet long, 4 feet long, 6 feet long. That is an eye opener for them.
Yeah.
They are sold on you. And then you're using our Para 2 product, which is a great antimicrobial. Then you introduce other ones in, say, Barlow Herbals or Byron White or Supreme Nutrition. Some of these other products are some of the ones that people may already use. But you have to go through a number of products. You can't just use one and think it's going to solve it all.
Right. Right. And then you have to dial in everything else too. Let's be clear about that. And that's what health coaches do too. I mean, they really do help people dial in food and dial in their sleep movement and stuff like that. Yeah.
It's a multi-therapeutic approach is what we say.
Yeah.
So it's not just the treatment, but it's everything else you guys, I'm sure, already preach to those people. So my approach is this. I'm going to start opening up detox pathways. A kidney, liver detox, lymphatic detox is going to start the drainage processes going. I'm going to use a binder. Like we have one called Virad Chem. It helps to clear radiation, heavy metals, chemicals, and viruses. Okay. And this is a really good binder overall. It's our foundational binder. And then we can get into other ones that we have. But we have ones that are more aggressive on heavy metals. Another one really aggressive for biotoxins, such as ammonia, mold. And the ammonia mold issues are huge. This is what I work a lot with my Lyme people, but specifically my autistic kids that I coach with their parents.
Yep.
Phenomenal changes. I had just like life-changing stories with people on the biotoxin binder and how much it's allowed them to decrease major brain inflammation, seizures, all kinds of other symptoms that they're dealing with. So I've seen a lot of results with those. And the whole product line, as people will get on there and learn, we're going to be having training and videos that people can sign up and get an account on that. And Dr. Jay Davidson and I go through every product and help train people to understand what they're used for, when to use them, how to do protocols and everything, month for month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4.
Yeah. See, I think this is really helpful because I think one of the things that overwhelms the people that we work with, and I know used to overwhelm me before I got smart enough to make better decisions to stop stressing myself out, was when, we present people with, okay, here's an elimination diet. When you're done with that, then you're going to go get all these labs done. When you're done with that, then we're going to see what's left over. And then it's a, oh my gosh, you have, high EBV, high IG, GG on this or whatever. And then we throw supplements at them. I mean, to me, that's overwhelming. If I were to start working with someone that had a myriad of symptoms and they were seeing a doctor, of course, we always recommend they work with a practitioner, but I like to do things in a low stress way. It's helpful to think, listen, you can just do this approach of supplementation, and let's do a nice gentle ease into opening up the pathways and seeing what we can go after with this, as opposed to all of these other things, ahead of time to stress them out. I mean, I have coaches complaining that they have people that quit before they even get to the labs because they get overwhelmed at having to find someone to help them walk through the process of labs,
So the great thing about this is teaching my system. I learned this from Dr. Pompa, Dr. Jay Davidson, and the process of three phases. We talk about the prep phase, the body phase, the brain phase.
Mm-hmm.
And in regards to the prep phase, it's all about doing what? One, it's opening detox pathways, supporting physiology, and removing some of these major problems that are creating so much of the toxins in the first place.
Right.
The biggest organism in our bodies are parasites. They produce the most toxins, byproducts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I always start with the gut. In functional medicine, what do we always address? Leaky gut.
Yeah.
We hear leaky gut, leaky gut, leaky gut.
Yes.
And what do we use? We use some products to help, fix the lining of the gut. And but what about the causation of leaky gut?
Exactly.
What about going after the causes instead of just like, hey, let's use this product to heal the membranes and the junctions and everything? No.
Yeah.
Use something that's going to bind the glyphosate and pull it out.
Right.
Use something that's going to clear the parasites out and the yeast fungus byproducts and clear all that stuff out, so then you can naturally heal it. That's the approach I take. And the wonderful thing about, for example, the binders that we use is the binders, not only do they bind, but they provide the building blocks to heal all those sections, to heal the gut lining, to heal the tissues in the body.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a difference. And the binders that we use can be taken with food.
Okay.
That's game changer. You don't have to take 2 hours away from everything. It can be taken with your meals. The only thing I take it away from, of course, is medications.
Of course.
And then I take it away from the Para 1, which is the most efficacy.
Okay.
Other than that, I put it with other supplements, other products, and it makes it so much easier to be compliant. And somebody that starts to feel good and they start pooping out these things coming out the backside, it's amazing how compliant they get, because now they know what you're doing.
Right. And you see a lab. I mean, this is just the same thing as someone saying, well, I'm not going to give up this or this or this. And then you're like, okay, well, you're a candidate to do a lab because you have to see something in black and white that says you have a problem with this. Then they're like, okay, it's like the heart attack. I always talk about the heart attack. Sometimes people don't believe they have to make a change until they have a heart attack. And then they're like, all right, I had a heart attack. I'll eat better.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Okay. I know. It's crazy.
So this takes me to a basic detox, right?
Yeah.
Let's detox. Open up detox pathways. Let's clear what creates toxins or toxins that are already there. They're from your foods, from all these sources. It's a very simple system to educate them on. And these will start helping all the other things. So when you do work with your doctor, you're going to be so much further ahead and they can do more detailed work that may need their help.
Right.
But the system that we're putting together for Dr. J and I, for our practitioners and health coaches, is just phenomenal, because now you're going to be able to have the products you need to take them through the whole process. And then you change their diet, you get them exercising, you have them fasting or doing intermittent fasting, and you start working on the mind game, or what we call the emotional mindset.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, these people's lives are changed.
Yeah.
And my life's changed. I have energy. I'll be 50 in a couple months, right? And my life is way different than it was up to 15 years ago.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm 47, and even though I'm like post-menopause and, had been dealing with thyroid problems forever and all of that stuff, I literally, I mean, physically, I'm stronger and in better health than I was in my 20s and 30s. And that is not, that was not easy work. I wish that this kind of thing had been around when I was working on parasites, because, and let me get your opinion on this too. Back when I was working on this, I don't know, it's been 12 years maybe. Kalker, Dr. Kalker's out there now. That site can overwhelm you. I know I went to it 2 or 3 times and I finally was like, all right, I'm going to spend some time on here. So then you've got coffee enemas and you've got all of these other things. Do you recommend like assisting the process besides the binders of removing parasites, like doing coffee enemas and saunas and all of those things? Or can you do this without all that? Because let me say this. I was like coffee enema and my what for about 2 years. And then finally I was like, okay, if that's the last piece of it and I'm missing a big part of this by not doing them, I'm going to do them. So I did. Not pleasant, but were they necessary?
So I have people that have never done coffee enemas. Now I have other ones that have severe constipation and that, they need to do coffee enemas because of stuff with liver and all these other things. So they do them. Each person's different. And so part of the process is understanding them. At first we don't do it. And we get down to the point where you're like, you need to do it. And now that they believe and they've seen these things come out of them and they're a big believer in you, they will follow your directions. But you have to establish that trust first. Yeah,
because that's a tough one right there. I tell you what, I had a girl who was, we knew she had parasites. I mean, it was visible, it was happening, but she could not get well. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I think this is going to be the last piece because you're not moving your bowels enough to get rid of everything. And that was a game changer for her. So
the great thing about the bowel mover is we have a product called Bowel Mover.
oh, well, there you are.
Really inventive. And it went through a lot of research. The scientists I work with, they worked with pharmaceutical company years and years ago. And so the great thing about it is this: they figured out, they did a lot of research, and then he later on figured out the right blend to reestablish the peristalsis and to get to soften the stool up so it's not like explosion like you get with magnesium, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it helps to get nice soft stools. And this has worked phenomenally with people I've coached, and especially with a lot of the autistic kids that tend to have that problem anyways.
Right.
I've seen people one gal that went as long as 34 days without going to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible.
No.
And she's usually 10 to 14 days, and now she goes daily and regular. And between using that product and the Para One, which is the mimosa pudica seed, she is every day fantastic and happy.
Yeah.
Not near as moody.
Yeah, I gotcha. I had a friend that said she wasn't constipated, and I'm like, well, how often do you go to the bathroom? Once a week? I'm like, you're more than constipated. So let's go into the Q&A for a minute here and get some questions answered.
Yes.
So I'll go ahead and read them to you, so make it more efficient. But can Dr. Watts comment about stubborn parasites? I did 1 round of his protocol, but the bugs remain. Sometimes are 2 to 3 rounds required. Any other tips for really stubborn ones?
So there's stubborn ones because it's not the right product to get the right one out. So what I see is that when you do a parasite cleanse, I treated myself for a year. This is not a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day thing. Okay. What I do is I go through and say, okay, I'm going to be on my Para One product for a long time because that's the base that keeps pulling stuff out. But then I'm going to go through and I'm going to use my Para Two. I'm going to go through and use some Barlow herbs. I'm going to go through and use some products from Byron White. I'm going to use products from maybe Supreme Nutrition or Biotics Research, or there's Des Bio, there's Beyond Balance. I like some of their stuff really well. So you have to look at rotating through multiple products and take a product for parasites, take a product for yeast at the same time, and then use some of the protocols I do. It is a lot more than just a protocol once. It is a 1 to 2 year process that somebody's going to have to do to get rid of them. Cackler's protocol is 2 years for these kids. Klinghardt talks about 18 months. All these doctors talk about the length of time of doing it. Part of getting there and reestablishing microbiome is cleaning the toxins out too. The more toxins you get out, the less apt you are to have parasites, the better your bile flow is, the better your stomach acid is. That's a really important part to address as well. That'll help down-regulate the amount of parasites that you have too.
Yeah, and I think we all need to remember one of the first things that we need to be conscious of beyond leaky gut and all the other things is, are you stressed out? Because if you're stressed out, you're undoing all of this, the stomach acid and all of that. I mean, stress is the biggest player in my opinion. I used to say it all starts with the gut, Hippocrates said, and all of that when I was coaching people. But, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I started to realize, just only, personal experience, but working with people too, is that it starts with stress because stress affects the gut. So whatever you eat and do and whatever, it can all be undone if you do not change how you see stress, how you perceive your life to be. Okay, so Linda is asking, what's the sequence with using pudica along with or before any anti-parasitic herbs? I've had problems with wormwood, need other herbs for worms.
So the Para 2 product has been phenomenal for that. So we have many people that are very sensitive to other products that were able to do the Para 2 and have no reactions to it. Okay. I had a doctor actually I was talking to from Michigan, and he had a patient that he'd been working with for 2 years, and he had severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, and he had really bad ulcerations throughout his large intestine. And he couldn't tolerate things for more than a few days. Mm-hmm. Even the mimosa pudica, the Para 1, he couldn't tolerate that for more than 5 days. The Para 2 is able to go on, and it'd been on for 60 days. When they rechecked his colon, 80% of the ulcerations were gone. So here, that's a really good one to start with, and then from there you may be able to handle it. The other thing is you have to look at liver function. Liver function is key, even for the acid in the stomach, because there's this feedback system that happens. So you just have to find something you can tolerate. Noni, there's that, pau d'arco. Those are some really good herbs that you can consider using and work your way up. You don't need to go straight to black walnut.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's the most awful tasting stuff ever. Black walnut. Oh my gosh. Okay. So Doreen, who's my mother, I love how my mom always wants to know when we're doing these. She hops on. Hi, Mom. And she, we kind of already answered this, that she's asking, would you recommend a cleanse if you're not sure you're invaded? Which you already said, if we have a pulse, and yes, we probably have a parasite if we haven't treated. And I do want to kind of add on her question here. Is there a kit to be tested or a blood test? Could you order the test if you're able to read it, et cetera? I know that, some of the labs that we've done, like Diagnostic Solutions has a section on there for parasites. So are any of those accurate in any way? I know you said there's false negatives, but
the issue is this: how many parasites did they test for? I've seen people send in actual liver flukes. I mean, there's classic textbook liver flukes, send in and comes back negative. Send in a worm, comes back negative. So I just don't think, I think you're going to get mostly, they might get, the ones they test positive for are the protozoans. Entamoebas, Clostridia, all the smaller Giardias, those kinds. They rarely ever test positive for tapeworm or, nematodes and trematodes.
Okay.
And so it's going to be more, the proof is in the pudding by what's coming out in the toilet, what people see, and just understanding what products to use for flukes, what products to use for tapeworm, what products to use for nematodes, and then doing it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because this is something that I unfortunately saw way too much of when I was studying the parasite thing. Okay. So we're going to get a little kind of, I'm not showing pictures, but I'm going to get a little graphic in description because I wish I could unsee what I saw. Okay. But even on Calker's page and Hulda Clark and reading about Klinghardt, like these are people that have been in my library for years. And I remember trying to figure out if that was why my thyroid wasn't working properly, why I was so, my adrenals were so smoked, and why I was so bloated and all of that. And I was pulling up pictures of, I don't remember the name of it, but this particular parasite, and everyone was saying, look what came out in the toilet space. So they're turning in all these pictures in this forum of their bowel movements. And it was these long, worm looking things. And people kept chiming in and saying, no, that's biofilm. That's coming off of the intestinal walls. That's not a parasite. Do you know what I'm talking about? I know you. Okay, so how do you know what's a worm unless it's moving around in there? Things can get sloughed off, from our digestive tract and end up in the toilet. So is it obvious when you see something?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It is sometimes. It is. I have patients, especially with some of the medications they've taken, and then some of the herbs that we see actual worms. But remember, strongyloides, they're like a millimeter big. Some of those things are really tiny, so you don't necessarily see those. People always little seeds in their poop too, that those are feces, and you got eggs or other types of parasites coming out. These big things that you're talking about, that's what the Para 1 removes. That's the most effective product on the market today, and why so many people take it is because they're seeing this stuff slough off.
Okay.
But what happens is when you have all this buildup in there,
Yep.
No wonder why they get constipation, and no wonder why they can't get over their chronic illness.
Yeah.
By getting that stuff out, it's been life-changing for so many people with food allergies, with chronic infections, with seasonal allergies. You'd start naming all these symptoms. You got to clear that stuff out.
Yeah. Well,
and you want to clear it out from the top down. And so, yeah, you know what? Great for them. Better out than in.
Yeah. And so it really doesn't, again, that's just a testament to knowing that when you take this stuff, even if you don't know for sure you have a parasite, you're doing something good for your body. And let's not forget paying attention to symptoms too. So Linda says, do you feel it's best to get parasites out live as Dr. Klinghardt recommends? Does Pudica do this?
So the Momus Pudica basically just grabs on and encapsulates and just pulls them out.
Okay.
So as far as getting them out of live, that's where the drugs can help out with that process, and maybe herbs. But most of the time, you don't see them come out live.
Okay. Yeah.
So whatever people say out there, I just don't see them necessarily coming out live. I don't know how you can necessarily tell unless they're moving around. But yeah, mostly I just don't get too caught up. I just want stuff out, and I continue to support my process and system. Yeah. Dr. Klinghardt's great. I've been to his clinic. He sells a lot of my product. So, I've learned from him. We've gone and I've taught some of his doctors up there on some of my stuff that I've gone through, and I've learned about blood work and looking at the parasite stuff. He's phenomenal. Now, there's a lot of theoretical stuff. I'm going to tell you right now. the stuff with Alex Walensky and ropeworm and biofilm and cackler and Carrie Rivera and all the stuff that you see coming out of these autistic kids, nobody knows yet.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought her up, Carrie Rivera. Okay, so let's talk about MMS a little bit. I know you knew this was going to come up if we talk about Carrie Rivera. So many people, and I see the questions, you guys. I promise I'm going to get to them, but I have to talk about her because no one knows who she is. And I remember the first time I came across her, and I watched a Red Cross video, the Red Cross video on YouTube about MMS and how it was curing malaria.
Malaria.
Yes, and that is how I was brought to Carrie Rivera. And then I was like, I went down the rabbit hole, like big time. I bought it. I bought that stuff when I was doing the parasite cleanse. I know that I almost felt like my brain was wiped clean and I could see and hear again when I was doing that protocol. So what are your thoughts about her and what she's doing with the MMS and MMS in general?
So the issue I have is that the FDA doesn't like it.
Right, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't recommend it to my patients,
right,
or clients that I coach. I see a lot of autistic kids that have used it and either can't tolerate it. They're picky on a lot of things.
Yep. Oh, it's terrible. It tastes terrible. It's terrible.
and the other thing is that long-term it's not sustainable, or that it just doesn't resolve everything. But you see some amazing results with her. I think it's wonderful what she's doing. But the thing is with this, what's coming out of people, that's where my Para One product can really help in that area without having to have that horrible taste of stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It may not have the same effects systemically as the MMS.
Yep.
And when people do the MMS, they just need to be sure that they're paying attention to directions. And it's something that, because of the FDA, I just cannot recommend necessarily in the United States.
Totally. Like, use at your own risk. That's why they sell it under different names, and they're kind of on the back door of purchasing it and selling it and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So Tracy's asking, can the Para-2 be used in young children?
Yes. The issue with that is it's not a tincture.
Right.
So you either have to make it into a tincture or open the capsule up and put it into something else.
And that's possible.
And you set the dose, if it's a really young child, you do a quarter dose of adult. If it's a child 5 to 10, you can do a capsule.
Okay, very good. Nicole says, if you tested positive for a mold allergy, what are the steps to clear the mold from your system?
So one of the things is you have to consider, do you have mold in your sinuses?
Okay.
And so we're creating a sinus rinse to clear mold and parasites. I have some cool pictures on parasites that came out of people's noses when we used the rinse that we have.
Okay.
And I can show a picture if you want to look at it, but
yeah, show it.
Yeah, let's just pull that up.
Let's look at it.
It's just pretty, I call it pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll say that. I'm gonna look over here at the chat too, real quick, and I see your questions, you guys. I know we're getting up on the hour. I promise we'll cover it. And thank you for typing that in there, where you can purchase the products. Absolutely.
So there's 2 accounts. One's a wholesale practitioner. If you're a certified coach, you can go to Cellcore Biosciences and get it wholesale. If you're not, then you want to set up an affiliate account. The affiliate account is at Micro Formulas, or you can just go direct to wholesale. So here is an example.
Oh my gosh, what is that? Ooh, yuck! I see it. Yeah, we see it.
So this goes in. This came out after all the stuff came out of him. He thought his wife's hair was in his nose, and then he realized it wasn't her hair. It was probably parasites. So when he called us, we had him blow his nose again, and that's what came out. Now he sent another picture. I have 2 pictures of it, but that's an example of those things you can get in there and create chronic issues in there. Molds can also create chronic issues. So sinus rinse is really important. The biotoxin binder that we have, we're out of stock right now, but we'll have back in stock in about 3 weeks, is phenomenal for it. And then I would consider doing and be sure that you run the mycotoxin test to see if you have an active colony in your body that you need to clear out of your gut. So sometimes people will have to use an antifungal to deal with that. Some medical doctors will use diflucan or nystatin as well. And then the biotoxin binder has just been phenomenal for a lot of patients and clients.
Whew, that was gross. Okay, Claudia says, okay, hold on a second. People ask questions, it scoots up. You could avoid GI testing or GI maps and testing for other possible issues. she's basically saying, can we avoid those to test all these other things and just go for, I think I'm right about this, and just go for the treatment, right? And see what happens.
I go for the treatment. And the thing is because most of the time you're going to come up negative anyway.
Yeah.
Now, what you could do is you could do a ubiome test or one of those biome tests to see where your balance is, and then do the treatment, and then recheck the balance of seeing where the bacteria is. Our whole goal with this is creating a healthy microbiome. It's the way we create a healthy person.
Right.
So when I work with and coach people, I tell them that we're just going to go through and cleanse out your GI system. If you want to tell them parasites, great. If you don't, it's fine too. We're just going to clean it out and clean it up. We're going to clear out all the gunk that could be in there, including parasites, yeast, fungus. Does it really matter? No.
Yeah.
We all have bad bacteria or yeast, fungus, or parasites of some sort.
Yeah.
Just clean it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Linda says, is your parasite assessment available?
So I use the parasite assessment from Dr. Jack Tips.
Oh, I love Jack. I interviewed him
Jack's
a couple
wonderful.
years ago.
He's created one online that I found. There's several of them, other people that basically take the one and his and they make them theirs. I didn't do that. I just left Jack. I credit him all with that information.
Yeah, and
I got it from Systemic Formulas. So I use Systemic Formulas. I got it from Systemic Formulas that we use as part of my package. And I just, Jack's an amazing person.
Yeah. Oh, he's just great. He was one of the first people I interviewed for health coaches. I mean, probably 100 people ago, if not more. I love him. He's awesome. Okay. Do you find that patients who have gone through extensive chemo and radiation have greater issues with parasites?
Sure. They're more toxic, right? And their immune system doesn't work so well. So what you want to use is what we call a virad chem binder that's going to take care of viruses, radiation, and chemicals and metals. So you want to start using that product to be able to clear the chemicals and radiation from these people's bodies. And then from there, after you do that for a while, then upgrade to the HMET binder, which is going to clear metals and chemicals at an even higher rate.
Okay. What was that called again? You said?
It's called HMET. It stands for heavy metals. I'll do it here.
Okay.
It stands for heavy metals, environmental toxins.
Okay.
I know it's not very, I didn't name it a very thing, but I thought doctors could look at it and say, oh, that's my heavy metal environmental toxin binder.
Hey, I'm all about remembering things and keeping things simple. Absolutely. Let's see here. Stan is asking, is eating sushi a guaranteed ticket for having parasites? Please say no. Please say no. That was me saying, please say no.
I know. But that's where you have to take the other things. What do? They eat the wasabi and ginger, whatever you need to do to help keep that away.
Okay. So it's not a guarantee. If you're eating that as a combination, then you can kind of avoid that potentially. That's why they give it to you.
That's why they give it to you. You need to do it.
Yeah, burn those eyes out with that.
I don't eat it. I
haven't had it in a long time, but man.
I've taken medical parasitology classes, and once I learned the life cycle with fishes, I just have a really hard time eating it anymore. Okay, don't share that with me. All right, Marzana is saying, I'm a mom to a 4-year-old. Any products I should consider for my son is prevention. What do you think about that? Like prevention, that's a great question. Can you even prevent them, really? So I don't know that you can prevent them, but I think it's just I cleanse my kids twice a year, 2-3 times a year.
Okay. Simple enough.
And then, for kids, getting a tincture. I don't have one now for my company. We will eventually, but just get a tincture and use tinctures. Put it in water, maybe a drop of stevia in it, and have them take it. The thing I use for prevention is I try and create the best microbiome. The problem we have that causes the microbiome dysfunction is glyphosates, chemicals, and heavy metals that we get exposed to. So I use the virad chem binder for that. That's the foundational binder that I take every day, give my kids every day, and it helps to not only bind but also provide good nutrients to heal the gut walls and actually go systemic and cross the blood-brain barrier.
I love that. I love that that's not like charcoal. I love that you say you can take it with food. That is such a pain in the butt to have to find your binder, take it apart, away from something. Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. Claudia, I don't know what link you're talking about. Go ahead and be more specific. Nicole, are these products safe for breastfeeding?
So I would say that I would use you always go lower in dosages on the parasite stuff if you're breastfeeding, but if they're older, if they're say 9 months, it's fine.
Yeah.
Kids can get like strongyloides through breastfeeding or in utero. So I've had parents treat and seen parasites come out of 9-month-old children.
Yeah.
So I would say the only one I wouldn't necessarily do is the HMET binder at high dosages to where you're, pulling metals and possibly doing anything there. It should be okay, but I don't know at this point.
Yeah.
So I would say just use like the Virad Chem binder, and then, low dosage on pair 2, pair 1. And then there's some biomolecular oxygen and iodine products that are coming out. They're going to be phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay. And that kind of answers that. Well, the next couple questions, Doreen asked, is the part two available on your site? I'm going to go ahead and sign up and get everything set to you guys in a replay. So just, don't worry, the replay is going to go out and I'll have more details. It'll be, outlined like I usually do. So I will have a link for you guys to go to. And that answers Taryn's as well about being a practitioner. And you kind of touched on this. Can kids be born with a parasite, especially if they have GI intolerances and stool inconsistency since birth?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So he did put the links in for a couple, well, not links, but the names of the HMET binder. And you did share, you can purchase the products at cellcorebioscience.com. You guys look in the chat, scroll up before we wrap up here and grab those links if you want them now, but if not, they will be in the replay, I promise. Linda said, some talk about the symbiosis of parasites in our microbiome. Is there a safe level ever, in your opinion?
There may be. They help to absorb the problem. So I think the more toxic you are, the more you have to help offset that. But that's where I believe in detoxifying your system and body. I don't know that we completely get rid of them, but if you're having symptoms, you have probably an overload.
Yeah. So we want to just, again, guys, we got to pay attention to symptoms. How do we feel? If we're doing all of these other things right in our life and we're still not feeling well, then this is one of those things, we don't want to just throw things at the wall and see what sticks. We want to make sure we're doing all those other pieces right as well, right?
Dr. Simon Yu is a medical doctor out of St. Louis. He talks about the missing diagnosis. To know the answer, parasites is your answer. That's what he says. You've done everything else, parasites is the missing diagnosis.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
I posted on there the tincture. Somebody asked about the vermicide GRD of Barlow. They have Clarkia, Pod Arco. They have a lot of different tinctures, but those are some of the common ones I use for parasites from them. And then if you're a doctor, then you can also get a practitioner line at the Byron White, and those are some pretty potent stuff.
Yeah, perfect. All right. This has been great. Thank you so much for giving me I think anyone else might agree, that's a kind of a sigh of relief, because part of the biggest piece of the puzzle of figuring all this out is having to throw all those labs in there and then wondering and guessing and the order of things. So I'm going to be doing my own exploring out on the site while we formulate the email to send the replay out and get the word out about what you're doing and, give some people some hope about this. Is your story on your website by any chance? It is.
Yeah, it is on my story. It's on my website there, and it'll be on our Cellcore Biosciences and Microformulas websites. We're going to have a video that we talk about my story. Dr. J talks about his story. And, it comes back to this. It's just, I remember one day coming home from work, and my typical day was coming from work, just trashed. I'd lay down for a couple hours, get up, eat dinner, and then we put the kids to bed. And I remember pulling up to my driveway, and we all have the desire to be an amazing parent, right?
Of course.
My dad was coaching me baseball, and sports was a big part of my life. And when I pulled that driveway and I saw my 5-year-old and 9-year-old out playing baseball for the first time with my next door neighbor and not me, that was my big wake up point. That just punched me in the face and brought tears to my eyes. Like, holy crap, I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
I really got to I got to get this fatigue in control. I got to get my mindset wrapped around to where I can have my life back.
Yeah.
And so that was my big tipping point. Is I just kept pushing through really hard till I was able to get my energy back.
Yeah. And I just want to say one more thing before we wrap up, you guys, is, working with clients and working with people, and like I work with my parents, and, anyone that you're helping and working with, that says that they were diagnosed with something like we talked about earlier, just want to push this home really hard for you, such as adrenal fatigue and thyroid problems and fibromyalgia and all of these diagnoses. They're coming from there's a main cause. There's a reason. There might be several. Something triggered these symptoms to present themselves. So it's not okay to just say, oh, well, here's your thyroid medicine and on your way. We want to make sure that we find out why it happened. Where's it coming from? Why do they feel this way? And that's what it's all about, is getting to the root cause, the reason, the trigger. And, if you think you've done it all, this is it. Again, I'm never satisfied with just saying, well, I have Hashimoto's, I have this. Why? Where'd it come from?
So one last thing is Dr. J and Davidson and I do a Facebook Live every week on theparasitegroup.com, which takes you to our Microformulas Facebook page. So it's a question and answer live. If they have any questions on the products, that is the direct or affiliate line that they can come and ask any questions, talk about protocols, anything. We're available every Wednesday, noon Pacific.
Awesome. That's great. Awesome. I love direct lines to people who have all kinds of knowledge and information. So thank you so much again. Will I see you this August at Mindshare?
I am not making it this year. I have a family. My brother's coming in from Kansas. We're having a family reunion.
Okay.
The same weekend. It's like, oh.
I know. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. I mean, I feel like though, like, I'm reaching out to all those people I've made these tight connections with though, because I almost feel like we got to meet at the back door of the conference room. You're going to miss them. There's going to be so much going on.
There's so many people there last year.
Yeah. And it's getting bigger this year. So, well, I'll be thinking about you, and I always will remember you helping me get my voice, helping me find my voice on that day. So I didn't end up just squeaking out of there without speaking to anyone. Literally, that was my nightmare, waking up, not being able to talk at something that I was there to talk to people for. So thank you again.
I'm glad to help you. I did that for another conference that the guy who was doing the conference was losing his voice, and I helped him and got his voice back.
It was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Dr. Watson. Thanks to everyone. Have a good rest of the day and a great weekend. Thank you.